Welcome to another episode of The Unseen Paranormal. I am your host, Eric Freeman. On this week's episode, we're discussing the haunted history of Octagon Hall Museum in Franklin, Kentucky. Today's guest is Deborah Penddleton-Shapiro. She is a docent and on-site and paranormal investigator for Octagon Hall. Thank you for coming on, Ms. Debbie. How are you doing today?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic, and thank you for inviting me.
How did you get involved with Octagon Hall?
Well, I moved up to Portland, Tennessee, and we're about 30 minutes away from Octagon Hall Museum, and actually my significant other, John, found Octagon Hall and took me up there. I am a paranormal investigator, of course, and so my team and I went up to do some paranormal research on the hall, and from that day forward, I've been involved with the hall. It's really magnificent place, location, a lot of phenomenal paranormal events do take place there. The hall is a little strange. There are certain people that want up there, and it will get hooks into you. I ended up being one of those people.
They got us hooked into you, won't let you go.
Yeah, you have to. If I'm not up there, and other people who spend a lot of time up at Octagon Hall will say the same thing, that if you don't come up there within a week or two, for whatever reason, you're going to start having some really bizarre dreams about the place. It calls you back.
Yeah, it seems lots of paranormal investigations like that. Especially houses are a big thing that people just feel compelled to buy them. Not even necessarily knowing about the paranormal history, but they just feel like I should own this. A lot of them end up turning them into paranormal places that you can investigate or come visit.
Yeah, there are places you get attached to, but then there are also places that will attach back to you.
Yeah.
So, and being one of the in Octagon Hall, as far as being a residential environment, there are a lot of hotels, there are a lot of hospitals, there's a lot of asylums, sanatoriums, places like that. But Octagon Hall, wasn't built for the purpose of it being a residence. So it's a little bit different. So on the scale of everything, probably one of the most haunted residential locations that you're going to find.
Yeah, and y'all have been featured on just about every paranormal TV show on A&E, CMT, the History Channel, Discovery Channel. Yeah, Ghost Hunters, Haunted Collector, Most Terrifying Places in America. And it also is the only Octagon home in Kentucky, right?
That is correct, that you can access, absolutely. It is the only octagon-shaped residence, yep.
And so to start out with the history, it was built between 1847 and 1859 by Andrew Jackson Caldwell and his family.
That is correct, even though they had occupancy in the hall long before it was completed. The house is 3 bricks deep. Everything that built Octagon Hall from the ground up was taken off Caldwell's original 1,500 acres that he owned there. We're down to 300 acres, and we do caretake 10 of those acres. But all of the floors, the doorways, the mantles, everything were from trees felled by the property or on the property. The bricks were both quarried and fired on his original 1,500 acres too. So it was a big project.
And as a museum, do y'all have lots of the original furniture to the Caldwell family or to the house itself from the occupants that have lived there?
Well, that's an interesting question, and I'm glad you asked it. Because Andrew Jackson Caldwell was such a strong Southern supporter during the war between the states, he did everything he could to further that Southern cause. He was also a slave owner. But what he would do is he would give aid and comfort to any Confederate soldier that made their way there. And it didn't matter what they needed: food, money, clothing, medical care. We had a doctor there more times than not throughout the war. And of course, the flip side of that is that if everybody in Confederacy knew they could come there, so did everybody in the Union. And
right.
The Union knew that if they didn't catch whoever they were chasing and they were heading towards the hall, if they didn't catch them before they got through the big front door, they were never going to find them. And we have some very interesting little hidey holes there. But at one point, the Union, back in 1862, in February, late February, the Union did occupy Caldwell's property, and they kind of went to work on the place. They tore it apart, really. all the livestock was slaughtered, taken off the property. What was left was slaughtered and put down the well to poison the well. So in the days after the war, things just were not good in the South. So his second wife, Harriet Morton Caldwell, she stayed on until like 1918, and when she left Octagon Hall, she sold it to a Dr. Williams, who was an osteopath coming out of Nashville. He stayed until his death in 1954. So they're really, and then after that, it fell into rental property because he willed it to his 8-year-old granddaughter down in Alabama. So it fell into rental property. So the short answer to your question is no, as far as the Caldwell days is concerned, except what was used to build the house. But we do have some very, very exquisite period-specific furniture that is in the hall. We have a lot of artifacts that pertain to the Civil War. It's a magnificent place. It's well worth seeing. People can come in and tour. It's only during the day. It's only $5 cash per person for anyone 10 and older, and they get to tour at their own pace. We don't lead them from room to room to room. They can take all the pictures they want. So it's a neat thing.
And that tends to be unique, especially with older homes like that. A lot of them, I know, like Carton Plantation in Franklin and some of the other places around here, like the Civil War homes, there's places blocked off. You can't even set foot on the carpet. You can't, and so
Correct.
Yeah, Octagon Hall is a little more unique as far as that, and also it's not very far from Nashville, from Middle Tennessee, to drive up, which is where I'm local to.
Not
and
at
so
all.
To drive up and have a nice day trip and come out and see the beautiful country.
No, I was just going to say you don't have access to just the hall itself. You have access to the grounds as well. We actually have 3, maybe 2.5 cemeteries. I'll put it that way. We have one little one, but you have access to the entire property. The 10 acres that we caretake. So it's a great place.
And y'all have a few documented deaths on the property, and then I'm sure there's folklore surrounding other deaths, but you do have quite a few documented deaths.
Yeah, we do have some specific deaths at the hall that most people are already aware of. The first wife of Andrew Jackson Caldwell was Elizabeth Akers Caldwell, and she had 3 children by him. The second and the third child are the ones that people know best. The second child was Mary Elizabeth. She was a little girl of 11 going on 12 years of age. She was downstairs in our winter kitchen when her dress caught on fire. Unfortunately, it took her 7 very agonizing days to die from those injuries.
Wow.
She is still with us. She is 20, as is her mother. Lizzie is our woman in white. She appears as a white mist, and we're very protective of our spirits there. Mary Elizabeth had a little brother, AJ, and he was only 18 months old when he fell down the steps and broke his neck. And those 3 individuals are buried on the property. Andrew Jackson Caldwell was originally buried on the property, but when his second wife, Harriet, sold Octagon Hall, she moved back to Bowling Green, and there was this nice little clause in her will that says he will pick up my husband, and he will bring him up, and he will bury him in my grave up in Bowling Green, and that's how he left the property.
And there's also a slave cemetery there, right?
Yes, there is. We have 17 known slaves that are buried on the property. We also have 2 unknown Confederate soldiers that are also buried there as well. One of the things most people don't understand about the hall is that we don't have just 1 or 2 spirits. We literally have hundreds, inside and outside, and they are 24/7 active.
And what do you attribute that to? I mean, because you have these deaths that happen.
Well, there's been a lot of tragedy. There's been a tremendous amount of bloodshed. There's been, and as an example of that, in February, for about a month up in Bowling Green, the Union had the high ground, the Confederates didn't. And the Union spent, several weeks doing nothing but throwing cannonballs down on the Confederates until they got sick and tired of it. Confederates packed up. They took the 20-mile march down to Octagon Hall. They landed on February 13th with over 9,000 Confederate troops. Coming out of that bit of the issue they had in Bowling Green, there was a lot of injury. There was a lot of death. There was a lot of sickness and death due to sickness as well. The high level of emotion for all of this, a lot of hate, a lot of bitterness. a lot of anger has been poured into the ground along with all that blood. The basement area was turned into like an emergency room triage area. It was used for cold storage of the bodies. We have several mass graves on the property. And plus the octagon shape. Andrew Jackson Caldwell was fairly high up with the Masonic order, and they used Octagon Hall as their temple prior to the start of the Civil War. When you have all of that, plus the octagon shape, which in the occult realm is also considered a spirit trap, all right, you kind of get the idea that we're pretty loaded there. And we don't have just ghosts and spirits either. We run the full gambit. We have cryptozoology, ufology. We have a lot of Native American, and the spirits that go with them are also on the property as well. So like I said, it's very vast and very deep there.
And you were talking about how the Union came in and just kind of slaughtered all their animals and, broke everything they had. So yeah, and that energy, being trapped in that environment. And then a lot of the older houses built on limestone foundations, you can have that.
Correct.
Yeah, that energy trapped within that as well.
Yeah, we have a little bit of that as well. And we also have a full-blown river that runs underneath us. A lot of caves, of course. Welcome to Kentucky.
Right.
And, and all of these are used, can be used for just about anything. We know Caldwell, during the Union occupation, did hide his mules just off his property in some caves with a trusted slave. But one point I did want to make is that the worst thing that the Union soldiers did when they occupied the land is that they were absolutely horrendous to the slaves that were on the property. The brutality the Union soldiers committed against the slaves is absolutely unconscionable and unforgivable. And that alone sets a whole another paradigm in motion that's called.
Do y'all have any slave quarters that are still standing on the property?
We have one remaining original slave shack. Unfortunately, it's kind of partially standing right now. We do have the plans to get it repaired, but it's a pretty big effort. And it's going to be a very costly effort as well. We are a private 501c nonprofit organization. We're 100% volunteer driven. Nobody gets paid to be there. Not myself, not my counterpart Barry Gaunt, not the executive director Billy D. Bird. Nobody gets paid. Every dime we get goes into the care and upkeep of the hall.
And so y'all kind of use the paranormal teams coming in and basically renting it out to investigate. And it's good that money goes to save the history and keep the history going for more people to enjoy.
Exactly.
We talked about the slave quarters. Do y'all have any other buildings on the property?
We have a summer kitchen as well. We have 2 barns. The 2 barns that are there now are not original to the property. They were added later. The other barns, unfortunately, were struck and by lightning and burned down. We used to have another house on the property or 2. Again, lightning struck and burned those down. And those were never replaced, but they weren't really crucial to the hall itself, outside of, the original family staying there until the hall was built.
Right. We alluded to, everything from full body apparitions to EVPs to doors opening and closing and things moving. What is some of the evidence that sticks out in your head that you've captured over the years being the resident paranormal investigator?
Well, there's a lot. You mentioned a lot of it. We have a lot of disembodied voices too. When I open the hall up in the mornings at 9 a.m., and that's Wednesday through Saturday as well, 9 a.m. to 11, we close for lunch. We open at 1 and go to 3:30. But every morning when I go in, I'll say good morning to the spirits in the house. We also are under 24/7 security surveillance, and I'll go back and review the videos. And, at least once, maybe twice a week, there's a couple of people in the hall that will say, hi or hello back to me.
What is some of the best evidence that you've ever seen captured by yourself or by other investigators?
Oh, we have, there's so much. There's a plethora of it. If you want to go, people can go to our Octagon Hall Museum Facebook page. We have a lot of our evidence is there. They can review that. EVPs come at any time during the day or night. We have things that have come across on our security feeds. We have one woman that we caught once, quite clear. These aren't weak EVPs either. These are quite clear. Very, very deep Southern accent. Just out of nowhere, she goes, "Mighty quiet in here." So we have her on tape as well. Again, a lot of photographic evidence. We have interesting things there, and we have things that aren't always human there as well. So that's something else to keep your eye on. Best way to communicate with our spirits and to interact with them, first and foremost, is to always treat them with respect. If you treat them with respect, they'll treat you the same way. They are very interested in telling their story, and they will. A lot of times, even when you're just sitting around in the dark, just quietly talking to yourself, the spirits will jump in on your conversations and they will start talking. It's not unusual to see shadow people moving throughout. We've caught that on evidence as well. Mary Elizabeth, she'll talk right out loud. Dr. Williams, who's still in residence, he'll also speak right out loud and capture. We had a pretty significant event on July 25th with him. I'm editing that now and hope to get that posted. And then on July 27th, we had a pretty interesting direct on-camera shot of Mary Elizabeth's nursery door. We have a nursery set up for the kids. And of course, we, highlight Mary Elizabeth, where the door just closed about 4 o'clock in the morning. There hadn't been anybody in the hall for 12 hours. The storm, nothing to account for it. And not only did it close, it latched shut.
Wow.
And, we had a disbeliever go up after he saw the video. He went up and tried to recreate it, and he couldn't do it. So, welcome to the hall.
Right. How's it changed your life being such a big part of that and experiencing all this all the time? Because obviously you're an investigator before you got involved with Octagon Hall. How did it shape you as an investigator being around that all the time?
That's a very good question as well, because of the extent of paranormal phenomena that takes place there. My first night as an investigator, I was alone in the hall. It was around it was around 9:30, 10. My team was late getting there, so I was the only one in the hall. I was the only one on the ground, and I was chatting to friends down in Florida. And as I was chatting with them, all of a sudden this little girl's voice right next to me to my left goes, "Will you play with me?" And that was Mary Elizabeth. And I kind of went, "Oh, I gotta go. Something's happening." I need to, no equipment set up. So I ran and grabbed a recorder, and I had a bird's eye view of the stairs going up to the second floor. And I'm telling you right now, coming down those steps were 5 of the loudest boot stomps you ever heard in your life. This was not, "Oh, I think I hear footsteps." This is bam, bam, bam. And that was quite startling. I mean, it took me a while to get my jaw up off the floor, I'll admit it. I've been attacked there. I've been taken over there. I have seen things that I absolutely cannot even describe to you, Eric. There aren't words, and if you hadn't seen it yourself, there's no way you can understand, what can be seen there.
Right. Well, and like you were saying, with that history and with all of that energy there, then it just tends to be a magnet for everything. Like you're talking about cryptos and UFOs and all these other sightings, and
Correct.
it's kind of like a lighthouse in the dark, to kind of attract all that stuff.
It does, and other things can also be attracted to that same energy signature that it puts out. Like I said, we actually had to deal with a very difficult and definitely an unwanted non-human entity just this week that we had to remove from the hall. The other spirits weren't taking very kindly to it being there. It would be probably what you would refer to as like a spirit hoarder. It would have taken spirits off the property, and that's something we can't allow. Luckily, the lead investigator for Octagon Hall is Barry Gaunt. We call him Bear. He's an incredibly experienced and knowledgeable investigator, and he's able to do things that a lot of people just simply can't do. and he's able to facilitate that. I've assisted him on a few occasions. But, hopefully, people who do come to see the hall, they're interested in the people that created the history. They're the ones who are there. They're the ones who want to tell their story. Andrew Jackson Caldwell is still there. He will talk to you. He has no problems doing that. He's the boss. And, like I tell everybody, the spirits inhabit Octagon Hall. It's their home. Everybody else is just visiting.
Right. And what do you, after being there and experiencing all that stuff and talking to the spirits and getting EVPs, what do you think the spirits think of all the visitors that come to see them?
Well, it depends on the type of energy you're coming in with. It depends on the respect that you give them, your curiosity, all of that. It plays into how the ghost responds to somebody. If they don't like you, they'll completely ignore you. If they really don't like you, they're liable to start calling you names that I'm not going to repeat here.
Right. And unfortunately, anybody can call themselves a paranormal investigator nowadays, and unfortunately, some of them will try to do nasty things. And I've always taken the stance that these were once people too, and so they should be treated as such with the respect of, like you're saying, you're going into their home. And they should be respected with respect and dignity, and like they're still here. They're just, we can't see them. Maybe sometimes we can, sometimes we can hear them, but that doesn't mean that we should treat them any differently.
No, we really shouldn't. And considering what they went through in their life, the difficulties that they had, everything that they had to put up with back then, it's not pleasant. It really wasn't good times. Octagon Hall was not what you would see as a traditional Southern plantation either. It was more of a sustenance plantation. Caldwell's main industry was actually leather. And so, it was hard. It was difficult. There was a lot of disease, a lot of sickness. Medical care was not like it is today. You were just as liable to die from an injury back there as anything else, or back then. So it all keeps folding in and around itself. As treating the people with respect is, it's not just, a way a paranormal investigator should be. It's the way we insist they are when they're at Octagon Hall. We've had a few groups, that have come in and treated the hall otherwise. And yes, we know who they are. And yes, the chances of them coming back to Octagon Hall is pretty darn slim, because we just don't allow rituals of any kind to be done either. That we do have portals that are open on the property, and we have people who will open other portals. And like you said, since the advent of the ghost shows on TV, you now have a paranormal group on every corner of every town. And so many of them don't know anything else except what they have seen on TV. And most of that is not how investigations are conducted or should be conducted. When I started, you didn't talk about it. You didn't proclaim you were a paranormal investigator. That probably would have gotten you, a van showing up with men in white coats back then.
Right.
But people really had to search to find you. Most people don't do the amount of research they need to do on a location to be able to identify a spirit, document the spirit, through research, and they don't understand how dangerous it is. And they don't know what they're doing. And they open up doors at Octagon Hall that, again, people like myself and Barry Gaunt and his phenomenal team have to shut down. And it's a lot of work, and it takes its toll on us. Anyone who's up at Octagon Hall for a significant period of time, like the core people are, the hall will have a direct physical effect on you, one way or another.
Yeah, just being around that dead energy all the time and kind of zapping your energy, I could only imagine how it just kind of drains you, and you might need to take a break, from it at times.
Oh. Don't get me wrong, though. We love it.
Right. Any idea where the negative energy that came from that you always had to deal with?
We've got a couple of ideas. Sometimes people who come in to tour the hall, they may already have an attachment with them.
Right.
Like I said, there's no coincidences in the paranormal. We also had an event this week that dealt with a very spiritual young woman who we found out through conversation was talking to the wrong spirit. She didn't realize who she was actually communicating with. And once that was discovered, an energy went through the house that was pretty potent. It rattled all of us that were there. And the next day is when the necromancer showed up or became known to us.
Do you think dealing with
Yeah.
the paranormal all the time at Octagon Hall, you think it's made you more sensitive to energies and spirits and that type of thing?
We know the hall, yes. We're very aware of what happens in the hall. The spirits themselves will come to us if an issue develops, and they will try to alert us if something is on the property. We can be warned by the spirit. I have been warned by Elizabeth Akers Caldwell of something, and I'm not going to go into the details of it if you don't mind. But yeah, they will actually alert us if something has encroached that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, and then y'all can take care of it like you did the necromancer, the negative entity.
Yes. Yes, it has to be taken care of. You can't allow something like that to gain a foothold at the hall.
Right, especially when you have the general public coming in, that it could injure somebody or, anything like that.
Absolutely, because you get somebody, we were talking about an attachment coming in on a person, deciding to stay, doesn't need to be there. And it's something because they've gone out and fooled around with the paranormal.
Right.
They don't even know they've got the attachment. And then you get somebody who is, operates on a higher vibration, a higher frequency, comes to visit the hall, and that same spirit can then attach to them, leave the grounds, but now they're in a lot of trouble.
Right, and then they might not know how to deal with it or have, know anybody who can deal with it.
Exactly. And so we're always on guard in that. It doesn't happen very often. Thank goodness. It's rare, but when it does happen, we're able to. So far, we've been able to deal with it pretty successfully.
Which, if you watch some of the paranormal shows, you'll think that it happens every time they investigate. Somebody gets possessed or attached or something like that happens.
A lot of them ask for it. That's the other thing you have to watch out for. Be careful what you ask for, especially at the hall. But you're right. You're absolutely right. Most of these occurrences, when you get into the more dramatic side of the TV shows, they're actually incredibly rare in real life paranormal investigating. You're not going to walk in and every place you go to, you have a demon. If that's the case, you need to get out of the paranormal. There's a big difference, and I've used this before. There's a big difference between thrill seekers and truth seekers. The truth seekers are the ones who are more effective, and as opposed to the other.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times that intent, like you were saying earlier, that intent, the spirits know what your intentions are coming there, and they can either choose to mess with you because you have bad intentions, or they can just ignore you and not give you anything. And if you go in there respectful, and treat them like they're people, it's like if somebody walked in your home and they, treated you like crap, you're not going to be really responsive to them.
No, and that's when you're going to get, where someone's going to come up and say, "Get out."
Right, or yeah.
But you're right, Eric. You're absolutely right, and it's something that I've repeated over and over and over. Intent is everything.
So, do y'all have any events coming up?
Well, we do have an event that is coming up on the 21st and 22nd of August. We have a group, Paranormal Inc. They're doing a fundraiser for us, which is really great. We love fundraisers. 100% of everything that's collected goes to the hall. You can go to Paranormal Inc. You can go to their event calendar and sign up for that. Now, our most infamous fundraiser happens each October. This is our own fundraiser for the hall. We hold what we call novice paranormal investigation every Friday and Saturday night, plus Halloween during the month of October. This is where people who don't have the opportunity to hunt with a formal paranormal group, or they just want to experience what it's like to be in a haunted location and how a paranormal investigation works, they can sign up at our website, which is octagonhallmuseum.com. They go to the paranormal, click on paranormal, and then you'll see where it says novice hunt. Go to novice hunt, go to the month of October, and you can go ahead and register now. That calendar is open and ready. We have limited seating. We only take about 10 people. Then plus Barry Gaunt, his group, which is Night Stalkers Paranormal. I'm there along with the members of my group, which is Infinity Paranormal in Tennessee. And we bring in all of our equipment. We show people how to use it. We help them through the investigation. It is a real investigation as well. We do all the floors. We do outside. We do all the cemeteries. I mean, weather permitting, of course. But that's most of the time. It starts at 7 p.m. That's when everybody starts to gather. Once everybody's in the hall and we're ready to go, we shut the lights off and we start. It can go to 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Just depends on how active the spirits are, and it just depends on the staying power of the people. Some people can't take it. I cannot promise anyone's going to have a paranormal experience, but my personal experience with the hall during our novice investigation is you're probably going to have an experience. The home gets very, very active during that time.
One of the big theories is that in October it's the thinning of the veil with Halloween and that stuff. So I tend to, in my own home, I tend to have more activity around that time as well.
Yeah, we have several periods of time. We do get activity during July. August, it kind of, and maybe September, it might calm down a little bit. But here's one of the unique things about Octagon Hall. You can go on it, you can lease or rent the hall out as a paranormal group. It's only $300. That'll get you up to 6 people. That's the minimum amount, $300. If you have 7, 8, 9 people, the additional people would be $50 each. So it's very affordable. But even on nights when you think, man, this place isn't haunted. You said this place was haunted. You go home and you start listening to your recordings, and you'll have a plethora of EVPs.
Yeah, so it's just all the time. It just kind of right. It never stops. It's more sometimes. Stop. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. But and a lot of times if it's quiet in the house, you go outside and you're going to see shadows playing everywhere. You'll see different colored orbs dancing all over the place. I don't know if dancing is the correct term, but they are definitely in motion. Every once in a while you're liable to see a pair of red eyes staring back at you. That's when we usually say it's time to run. But it's neat. I don't know how else to put it to you. It has me fascinated. It's had me fascinated for years and years up there. The history is unique. The building itself is unique. The spirits who inhabit the hall are unique.
And if people would like to donate, do y'all have a place for that as well?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do. Once again, octagonhallmuseum.com. And I believe on the main page, there's a donate button in the upper right-hand corner. And you can just click on donate. Go ahead and apply your donations there. And I will thank you ahead of time for any donations any of your listeners send to us. Like I said, every dime we get goes into the care and upkeep of Octagon Hall.
Awesome. And I thank you today for coming on and talking to me. You've been a great guest, and I look forward to actually coming to see you in person.
Well, I look forward to meeting you, too. I've enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and stay safe out there. Join us next time for a new episode of The Unseen Paranormal. Until then, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or at our website, unseenparanormalpodcast.wordpress.com. And don't forget to like, review, rate, and share with all your friends. Thank you to my friend Chris Lips for the awesome theme music. Listen to our theme song and more of his music at chrislipsmusic.com. And remember, some of the scariest things are unseen.